Every morning, millions of Americans wake up to a familiar calm, a composed smile, a voice that never trembles, a presence that feels reassuring, dependable, almost immune to chaos. But what audiences see is not the full story. It never is. Long before the studio lights come on, before the makeup chair and the opening music, there is a woman who wakes up quietly and carries a weight no camera has ever captured. Ainsley Earhardt did not become strong because life was kind to her. She became strong because life rarely was. Her story is not about television or politics or fame. It is about endurance, about learning how to keep moving forward while grief keeps knocking, while loss rewrites your plans, while faith becomes less of a comfort and more of a lifeline. This is not the story of a public figure as the world knows her. This is the story of a woman who learned how to survive in silence and chose, every day, to show up anyway. Long before New York mornings and national headlines, Ainsley's world was smaller, quieter, and deeply structured. Raised in South Carolina, she grew up in a home defined by discipline, faith, and unspoken expectations. There was love, but there was also pressure, the kind that teaches a child early that achievement is not optional. Success wasn't something you hoped for. It was something you worked toward relentlessly. From an early age, she learned how to perform composure, how to stay focused, how to move forward even when doubt crept in. There was comfort in routine and reassurance in belief, but there was also an understanding that rest came second to responsibility. These early lessons would shape everything that followed. They taught her how to endure, but not necessarily how to pause. As a teenager, Ainsley was drawn to the glow of television screens, not for attention, but for connection. She watched interviews, award shows, morning programs, studying the way people spoke, listened, and held space. Acting fascinated her, but journalism felt safer, more practical, a way to be visible without risking instability. It was a compromise she didn't yet recognize as one. Even then, she was already choosing certainty over desire, safety over vulnerability. That decision would follow her into adulthood, shaping her career, and quietly narrowing her emotional world. New York did not feel intimidating to her. It felt inevitable. On a church trip during college, she stood outside a morning show studio before dawn, holding a handmade sign, watching professionals move in and out of the building she believed she belonged in. That moment wasn't playful or naive. It was a vow. She didn't say it out loud, but something settled in her chest, a certainty that she would return, not as a spectator, as someone who had earned her place. Her academic journey was not smooth. She began in biology, chasing what seemed responsible, but the fit was wrong. Watching a journalist speak about her career flipped a switch she couldn't turn off. Ainsley changed direction, transferred schools, and committed fully to journalism. From that moment on, she worked with a kind of intensity that left little room for doubt or rest. She chased local reporting jobs, volunteered for shifts others avoided, and learned how to perform calm under pressure. She didn't wait to be chosen. She chose herself again and again. By the time national opportunities appeared, Ainsley had already trained herself to postpone life. Relationships could wait, stability could wait, family could wait. There was always another milestone to reach, another rung to climb. When Fox News came calling, she didn't hesitate. She moved, uprooted herself, and committed fully, believing that once she arrived, everything else would align. What she didn't yet understand was that success does not slow grief. It only delays it. At Fox News, Ainsley stood out not because she was loud, but because she was consistent. Her faith wasn't a performance. It was woven into how she spoke, how she listened, how she existed on air. For some viewers, that authenticity was comforting. For others, it made her a target. Criticism followed quickly. Her appearance was dissected. Her sincerity questioned. Her intelligence doubted. She learned early that visibility invites cruelty, and that silence is sometimes the only shield available. Before the scrutiny, before the attacks, Ainsley believed she had already built the life she wanted. She married her college sweetheart, imagining a future where love and ambition could coexist peacefully. But careers don't expand gently. They demand space, time, attention. As her professional world grew, her marriage quietly shrank. Distance replaced routine. Schedules replaced intimacy. The end came without spectacle, a quiet fracture at the exact moment her public life was accelerating. Divorce did not slow her down. Nothing did. The camera still rolled. The audience still expected consistency. She swallowed grief and continued working, telling herself there would be time later to process what she had lost. That time never really came. Instead, she learned how to compartmentalize, how to carry pain without letting it surface. Years later, when she remarried, Ainsley believed she was finally ready for the chapter she had delayed. Motherhood felt earned, planned, long overdue, but biology does not respect timelines. Months passed. Hope thinned. Doctor visits replaced celebration. She watched others move forward while she stood still, quietly questioning whether her earlier choices had closed a door forever. When the pregnancy was finally confirmed, Ainsley allowed herself to believe that life had softened. After years of waiting, postponing, and convincing herself that timing mattered, this felt like a quiet reward. In the doctor's office, hearing the heartbeat for the first time changed something inside her. She recorded the sound, not out of habit, but out of instinct, as if preserving proof that this joy was real. For days, she carried that recording like a secret promise. Then, at the next appointment, the room felt colder. The screen was silent. The heartbeat was gone. What followed was not only emotional devastation but physical trauma, surgeries, recovery, exhaustion, and a grief that refused to stay contained. Doctors explained chromosomal abnormalities, offering scientific language where comfort was impossible. Ainsley listened, nodded, and went home with questions no diagnosis could answer. She blamed herself quietly, wondering if waiting too long had stolen something she was never meant to lose. From that moment on, every stroller, every pregnancy announcement, every casual reminder of motherhood felt like an unintentional wound. Loss didn't fade. It settled in. When her daughter was born, light returned to Ainsley's life in a way she hadn't experienced before. Motherhood grounded her. It gave her purpose beyond achievement, beyond survival. Hayden wasn't just her child, she was her anchor, her reason to endure the early mornings and relentless pressure. From the outside, it appeared that life had finally aligned. But inside the marriage, fractures remained. Tension that had never healed deepened with time. Then came the discovery that shattered what little stability remained: betrayal. Not just a marriage breaking, but trust collapsing in a way that rewires how a person sees loyalty itself. The public wanted answers. Statements were issued. Denials followed. Ainsley chose silence. Not because she lacked truth, but because she understood something the headlines didn't. Some stories are too heavy for a child to carry. Protecting her daughter mattered more than public clarity. Single motherhood did not arrive gradually. It arrived all at once. One day there was a partner. The next there wasn't. No instruction manual. No pause button. Ainsley woke before dawn, anchored live television, then returned home to be fully present as a mother day after day, without relief. There was no one to step in when exhaustion took over, no one to share the emotional weight when it became overwhelming. Yet she refused to let resentment shape her home. She spoke carefully. Chose honesty without bitterness. When explaining the separation to her daughter, she avoided blame and focused on reassurance that she was loved, that she was safe, that none of this was her fault. Ainsley understood that children feel more than they understand, and she was determined that her daughter would never feel broken because the adults around her were. If divorce tested Ainsley's strength, losing her mother dismantled it entirely. Her mother was not just family, she was refuge. The one person who believed without condition, who offered certainty when everything else felt unstable. Years of illness had already carved fear into Ainsley's daily life. Diabetes, kidney disease, dialysis, a stroke that nearly took everything. During the pandemic, the fear intensified. Every phone call carried dread. When the call finally came, time collapsed. Her mother was gone. With her went the last place where Ainsley felt like she didn't have to be strong. Grief didn't arrive loudly. It arrived heavy, permanent. What stunned viewers was not the loss, it was what came next. Days after her mother's death, Ainsley returned to television. Sitting under studio lights, voice steady, posture composed. She explained that her mother would have wanted it that way. Work was not escape. It was discipline. It was inheritance. But strength has limits. When a co-host said her mother would be proud, the wall cracked. Tears surfaced. For a brief moment, the audience saw what had been hidden for years. Not a broadcaster, not a public figure, but a daughter in grief. That moment wasn't rehearsed, and that's why it mattered. Loss did not soften the world around her. During the pandemic, criticism intensified. Comments were pulled from context. Accusations of privilege and insensitivity followed. It hurt more than she admitted at the time, not because she expected immunity, but because grief had already stripped her defenses. When she responded, she didn't shout. She reminded people that she was human, a working mother, a woman navigating loss while carrying responsibility in public. Criticism cuts deepest when it arrives after you've already been wounded. Ainsley Earhardt's resilience isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It looks like consistency, like responsibility, like choosing to stand even when the ground keeps shifting. She has never claimed healing is complete. She has simply demonstrated that survival doesn't require resolution. Sometimes it only requires movement, one day, one obligation, one breath at a time. Her faith evolved through pain. It stopped being certainty and became choice. Daily, intentional, belief without explanation, trust without clarity. This wasn't the faith she grew up with, it was the faith life taught her. The kind that exists even when answers never come. Survival is not free. It costs sleep, softness, time for yourself. It demands emotional restraint and delayed grief. Ainsley paid that cost quietly, without asking for recognition. Because for some people, endurance isn't heroic, it's necessary. And maybe that's the story worth remembering. Not the headlines, not the debates, but the woman who learned how to keep standing while everything familiar fell away. Strength doesn't always look victorious. Sometimes it just looks like showing up again, even when no one sees how hard that is.